Hello there, very good afternoon and welcome to Lunchtime News on TV1. On behalf of the News First, the voice of the people, I'm Martin Satyanesan. Let's start off with a look at your headlines for this afternoon.
Ranil Wickremesinghe sworn in as a Member of Parliament.
Thank you.
All the best, sir.
Fuel price hike heats up the Parliament. Debate continues amidst protest. What happened to the special COVID-19 healthcare and social security fund by the government? Government requests 200 billion rupees for COVID-19 expenses. What is happening in Tissa Maharama?
Now those stories in detail. A Chinese joint venture is currently engaged in a project to clean some of Sri Lanka's most ancient irrigation tanks, raising serious concerns. However, today the News First correspondent who visited the location to obtain footage was obstructed by a group present at the location.
Construction activities at the Tissa Maharama tank are being carried out by a China-Lanka joint venture. News First yesterday reported about the presence of uniformed individuals seen roaming, which is to dredge and clean the Tissa Maharama well, believed to have been constructed in the 3rd century BC by a Sri Lankan king. However, today News First correspondents who visited the location to obtain footage was obstructed by a group present at the location.
No media, see the city. Huh? Visual leg gun. How do you? Huh? How do you? Following kill. Huh? Mamna site me hari mo visual leg gun ogla gatu le mang ili ko api site api me hari me war jawlanne holne kene wada mogathi no api site ma media අපිට පාරේ ඉඳලා කරන්න පුළුවන් මේ අපි බොරු නෙමෙයි මේ භූමිය අපි අරන් තියෙන්නේ හරි භූමිය අරන් අපි ඉන්නේ එළියේ ඕගොල්ලෝ ගලතුණින් එහාට යන්න එපා කියලා ගහනවා මේ භූමිය අපි අරන් තියෙන්නේ ඉතින් භූමිය ගත්තා කියලා අපි මොනව කරන්නේ ප්‍රෙසිඩන්ට් කියනවා ප්‍රෙසිඩන්ට් කියනවා හරි අවුලන්නේ.
Who are these individuals who are wearing clothes similar to military camouflage uniforms? News First compared the attire of the group with the uniform worn by Chinese People's Liberation Army. Attempts made to adopt the MCC or Millennium Challenge Cooperation Agreement, which would permit US military boots on Sri Lankan soil, were shut down due to serious public outcry over the recent years. However, in the south of Sri Lanka, uniformed foreigners are seen roaming at a civil operation which is to dredge and clean the Tissa Maharama River. What is happening under the Chinese joint venture to dredge and clean some of Sri Lanka's most ancient irrigation tanks?
Tissa Maharama Maha River මේක තියෙනවා මේ
The Tissa Maharama River, which is mentioned in the history, is abundant with various resources. It is said that kings used to bathe here. Such a river is being renovated by a certain group. A group in military attire is deployed here. The people did not give the mandate to the government so that they can influence the sovereignty of the nation by bringing in such people from other countries. What is happening here? Chinese nationals with military uniforms are used for renovation activities. This is wrong. There is gold at the bottom of this valuable tank. This is an attempt to take away these resources from us.
Former Prime Minister and leader of the United National Party Ranil Wickremesinghe was sworn in as a Member of Parliament before Speaker Mahinda Yapa Begunawardena this morning.
The United National Party, which received 249,435 votes or 2.15% at the general election held on the 5th of August last year, failed to secure a seat in Parliament through public mandate. The 13th seat of the opposition was reserved for Ranil Wickremesinghe.
ආරක්ෂා කොට අනුගමනය කරන බවටද ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ දේශීය තුල වෙනම රජයක් පිහිටවීමට කෙලින්ම අන්‍යාකාරකින් ශ්‍රී ලංකාව තුලදී උන් ඊටදී ආධාර දීම අනුබල දීම අනුග්‍රහය දැක්වීම මුදල් යොදවීම ධෛර්ය දීම හෝ දේශනා කිරීම නොකරන බවටද ගෞරව බහුමානයෙන් යුක්තව ප්‍රකාශ කොට ප්‍රතිඥා දෙමි. Thank you. All the best.
Ranil Wickremesinghe, who first came into parliament in 1977, served as the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka 5 times. In his 40 years in parliament, Ranil Wickremesinghe is the longest-serving leader of the opposition in the country.
A tense situation was reported in Parliament today when the opposition members representing the Samagi Jana Balawegaya moved to the well in Parliament to protest against a recent hike in fuel prices and several other issues.
When inquired about the hike in fuel prices, the Minister of Energy did not provide a proper explanation. Because of fuel price hike, the people are facing severe difficulties. At a time like this, as the Speaker, you must intervene and make sure that clear and accurate answers are given when important questions like this are raised. Honourable Speaker, I can provide an answer, but I will not be able to share my wisdom for him to understand my answer. The so-called Vice Minister is diverting the question raised by the MP. We are requesting all of you to act according to the standing order.
ආරක්ෂණ අරමුදල වියදම් කර ඇති ආකාරය පහත දැක්වේ. විස්තරය ආසන්න වශයෙන් රුපියල් මිලියන වල.
These are the details of the expenses. 42.6 million rupees have been spent on PCR tests, while 67.5 million rupees have been spent on awareness programs. For maintaining quarantine facilities, we have spent 38 million rupees and 41.5 million rupees have been spent on the inoculation program. In total, we have spent 89.7 million rupees. Now, money was released for the COVID-19 fund in 3 occasions. Sri Lanka Army, meanwhile, is providing suggestions on how to purchase ambulances. The preliminary measures are underway, to which the funds have not been released yet, with the guidance of the Governor of the Central Bank. 17 specialists from various industries have been appointed by the President and they are managing this fund. A quarterly comprehensive update on the expenses will be provided to the Parliament by the government.
රජය කටයුතු කරන බවද දැනුම් දෙමු. අපි සමාජ පාලනයනවා. අපි විශ්වාස කරනවා. අපි කියනවා. රටේ ජනතාවට
Today marks the 97th birth anniversary of the late Ranil Premadasa, who took political leadership which was considered at the time to be held only by the privileged in the country to the normal working class people.
The 97th birth anniversary of the late Ranil Premadasa, who was the second executive president of Sri Lanka, was held at the Premadasa statue located in Alutkade, Colombo, under the patronage of opposition leader Sajith Premadasa. The Mahasangha, parliamentarians and relatives of the late Ranil Premadasa joined the occasion this morning. The late Ranil Premadasa, who entered into politics from the Labour Party, operated as an active member of the United National Party in the 1950s. Ranil Premadasa is regarded as the man of the people who rendered a massive contribution to Sri Lanka. Initiatives started by Ranil Premadasa, such as Gam Savya, which provided shelters to hundreds and thousands of Sri Lankans, Jana Savya, the program launched to distribute school uniforms to school students, and the establishment of garment factories that brought foreign revenue to the country are still in effect across the country in more developed forms. I see the late Ranil Premadasa as a rare and a great personality, not only in Sri Lanka but on a global scale as well. According to our literature, once in a lifetime, a champion will be born out of 100 people. But keep in mind, although 1 out of 100 people are being born as champions, the birth of people who have exceeded even that feat is very rare.
We will gear up to continue the massive service he has rendered towards this country as one alliance.
Protests over the recent fuel price hike were held across the island today.
Demonstrations opposing the fuel price hike was held opposite the Dehiwala municipality this morning.
The general public of the country are severely impacted. The cost of living is rising. Environment is being polluted. People in the country do not have any money.
A protest organized by the Samagi Jana Balawega was held in Beliaka today. Opposition members of the Heva Hatta Pradeshiya Sabha too engaged in a protest in Talatuya. The general public have been directly impacted by the increase of fuel prices. The increase of fuel prices will result in the increase of many other items as well. Therefore, what we ask from the government is to reduce the price of fuel and provide relief to the people.
The fishing community in Beruwala are severely inconvenienced owing to the recent hike in fuel prices. The fishermen charge that they have not received the compensation for the disaster caused by the MV Express Pearl vessel.
Around 500 fishermen attached to the small boatyard near the Beruwala fishing harbour engage in fishing activities. The fishermen point out that they are facing difficulties due to the recent hike in fuel prices and several other issues.
We hung our nets for 20 days because of the Express Pearl issue. There aren't fish in the ocean. We went home these days empty-handed. The government leaders cannot understand these issues. They eat high-quality rice, but we have to eat punnakku. We have not received the sum of the benefits and the 5,000 rupee allowance. We formed this government. That is because we thought they were good. The president might be a good person, but the people around him are not. When we pumped 5 gallons of fuel and set out to sea, our cost was 2,200 rupees. Now it's at 3,500 rupees. It has been 12 days. We took 4,000 with us, but it is not even enough for fuel. Now we have to pawn our jewelleries.
Minister of Trade Dr. Bandula Gunawardena presented the supplementary estimate worth 200 billion rupees to Parliament today. And this is the response given by newly elected parliamentarian Ranil Wickremesinghe.
පාර්ලිමේන්තු ජීවිතයක් ආරක්ෂා ආරම්භ කරන්නට අවස්ථාව ලැබීම ගැන මම විශේෂයෙන්ම මගේ සතුට ප්‍රකාශ කරනවා.
I would like to express my gratitude for letting me enter Parliament. I would like to extend my thanks to you, to the Speaker, the Prime Minister, the Leader of the House, the Opposition Leader and the party leaders. This government has given tax concessions, yes. They gave tax concessions to the rich people and left the poor people in hunger. What is the situation at hand? According to my understanding, the only way out of this is to go back to the IMF. If you do not agree with this, please tell us what the alternative is. What has been done to curb the COVID-19 pandemic? The task force established to combat that has failed utterly. You will understand what has transpired from the beginning if you had listened to the speech of the Health Minister. We cannot go forward with these task forces. According to the Constitution, the responsibility of this falls under the Cabinet and the Parliament. Why isn't the Cabinet given this right? It is the Cabinet who should make these decisions.
අපේ දේශපාලන විරුද්ධවාදිකම් තිබුණාට ව්‍යවස්ථානුව කැබිනට් එක තමයි තීරණ ගන්න ඕනේ.
Farming communities of Mathatilla Bandaravilla took to the streets today, demanding the authorities to provide a solution to the fertilizer shortage in the country.
Farming communities of Mathatilla Bandaravilla engaged in the protest today. Cinnamon oil manufacturers from areas including Gaul, Karandenia, Ambalangoda and Koskara have also been affected due to the fertilizer shortage. Cinnamon oil manufacturers allege that issues have arisen due to the unavailability of cinnamon leaves owing to the fertilizer shortage issue.
In international news, after 6 months of deliberation, a team of international lawyers have unveiled a new legal definition of ecocide that, if adopted, would put environmental destruction on par with war crimes, paving the way for the prosecution of world leaders and corporate chiefs for the worst attacks on nature.
The expert panel published the core text of the proposed law yesterday, outlining ecocide as unlawful or wanton acts committed with knowledge that there is a substantial likelihood of severe and either widespread or long-term damage to the environment being caused by those acts. Its authors want the members of the International Criminal Court to endorse it and hold big polluters to account in a bid to halt the unbridled destruction of the world's ecosystems. If the draft is adopted to the Rome Statute, ecocide would join genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes and crimes of aggression, and the so-called fifth crime that could be prosecuted at the ICC.
In your sports news, the first of the three-match T20 series between England and Sri Lanka is set to commence in Cardiff today. The touring Sri Lanka team is set to play 3 T20 internationals and 3 ODIs against England. The first T20 will commence at 11 p.m. SLT today. Until now, the teams have faced each other in 9 occasions, with England clinching victory in 5, while Sri Lanka in 4 encounters. Prior to the match, England wicket-keeper batsman Joss Buttler expressed his views on the touring Sri Lankan team.
I think Sri Lanka are always producing exciting cricketers. I know Kusal Pereira's been around for a little while, but I always see him as a dangerous player to play against, someone very attacking who can take the game away from you. And I think someone I've not seen as much of, but I've heard is a really exciting player is the leg-spinning all-rounder Hasaranga. So he played one of the first tests, I think, in the winter, and I know he's highly talked of. I remember Mickey Arthur saying he was very excited about him as a player. So there's 2 names for you, but I'm sure there's a very talented squad.
From that, we bring to a close this edition of Lunchtime News on TV1. For details of these stories and much more, simply log on to our website www.newsfirst.lk. For the News First, the voice of the people, I'm Martin Sattines, and you take care and stay safe.